I'm sorry not to be from Cambridge, but our company is in Watertown, a little bit further up the Charles River, and we work all over the world. A lot of planning, urban design, and architecture, and I've personally been involved in sustainability issues for longer than I care to remember. I planned an energy self-sufficient dormitory for a private school in 1973, which they didn't build, alas. While I was a dean at Harvard, we were able to cut steam use in the Jimmy Carter energy crisis by 50% in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, and continue to do this kind of thing. I wanted to talk about the sort of the behavioral end of things. The average American home's doubled in size, I believe, since 1973, and so all the what Stephanie points out we can do with our houses, we certainly have been a little prodigal in their size. And I have two perspectives on this, really. The first is my mother. Everybody should talk about their mothers. At 91, she was still riding her tricycle 4 miles into the local town to shop in England. And if we were all like my mother, we would already be a 2,000-watt society. And something to think about, the huge cultural differences between Europe and here, which were pointed out at the beginning. My other influence besides my mother is my Prius. There are other influences too. But I love the way a Prius gives you a feedback loop. It tells you minute by minute, second by second really, exactly what you're doing with your energy. When we first bought this, I thought, isn't there something to learn from this in terms of how we monitor our own behavior? Notice these numbers are different from Stephanie's, and she pointed out it's probably just a different year. Not great. But the reason we need to be aware of behavioral issues in a larger context than the home is that transportation number, 28%, is a huge one. And well, there are other reasons too. So we tend to work at a variety of scales, and we've talked about the interior on the right here, but if you start moving up to architecture, through to the landscape of your home, and Chin just talked about that a bit, then into the district, and then into the city, and then into the regional one. So here, for example, is a plan for a zero-net energy building. This is Masdar, which you probably read about in Abu Dhabi, a zero-net energy district of the city, which we're planning about a third of at the moment for a new university. And here you have Cedar Rapids, right after the floods, planning for a whole district. So that's a sort of scale comparison we work in. We haven't talked so much, and it's been maybe overstressed in discussions about sustainability, about the triple bottom line. The notion that economic, environmental, and social factors all have to be treated together and to feed into the built environment. And so I'll be talking about that a little bit. The first of the two perspectives I'm going to give you is something called the digital mirror, and the notion of an eco-district. Let's imagine Cambridge was an eco-district, or became an eco-district. So we're going beyond looking at the block that Chin talked about, beyond the building that Stephanie talked about. We talk about the city, or maybe just a part of the city, and think, well, can we learn something from social networking? Can we learn something from feedback loops, from my Prius, as well as from my mother? Sustainability, I think, really is a social decision. We talked a lot about the technical issues around sustainability. But it couldn't make a social engagement tool, a sort of Facebook for sustainability, as it were, that could help us with this. Here's an imagined view of this. This is your page. You're dealing with environmental, social, and economic issues, a triple bottom line. And you're Oliver Spaley. You actually live in Oregon in this particular version. This little chart, this chart was invented by Florence Nightingale, this kind of chart. She was a better statistician than anybody realizes. That's why she's such a good nurse. Here we look at the baseline for performance. Here we look at the average. Here we look at where we're trying to get to in air and land by all these various different things. The idea being that feedback on your personal behavior has a huge impact. I get a call, I live in Somerville, from the city of Somerville when I water my garden. They know, because the water meter talks, I think, to a cell phone tower, which talks to people in City Hall who talk to me. It actually is rather effective. You can do this with all utilities now, theoretically. So imagine, though, America thrives on the spirit of competition rather than social responsibility. So imagine if, well, as well, Cambridge is a special case. Oliver likes to look at what John Hancock down the street is doing with his sustainability metrics, and Beans Coffee, the not Starbucks coffee down the street, and then the local university too. How are they all doing? Because learning from our neighbors is very important. And also sharing, you know, I can tell them when the strawberries in my roof garden, which I just built, are ripe, and then lots of people come knocking on my door. We also need, because if we're going to do something like this, we've got to give something back to the people, where we're looking at a whole district as a system. It's a little like treating people as ants, I guess, as a whole interconnected community. That we need to make informed decisions in everyday life. We need, for example, to know if there's bulk buying power in our cities, so that if I want to replace my hot water heater, as Stephanie suggested we should, I get a really good price, because the city has arranged that. And then we could, oops, went on too fast. Ideally, this is such an informative thing that this is the page you go to, and maybe it's on the computer screen on your refrigerator at home, your low-energy refrigerator. Well, going from that to issue of personal behavior in feedback loops, what about regional planning? This slide is deliberately overwhelming. Regional planning has a terrible history, and particularly in Boston, incidentally. It's incredibly hard to do here. Because there's so many competing entities, so many different competing agendas. I mean, you imagine how many competing agendas there are in Cambridge? I worked at Harvard for a long time. I know this. Believe me, I have been to plenty of public meetings over the years. Working on a regional scale is hard. But then if you add to that all those competing agendas, all the issues you want to deal with, social equity issues, to do with housing, for example, economic issues to do with creation of jobs, economic development, and then natural systems, climate, ecology, hydrology, very important. We heard a little bit about that earlier. Then the built environment with multiple areas in it, like air quality, public health, transportation, and so forth, and all over to here, which energy is what we've mostly focused on this evening. But all those things have to be considered together. Would it be possible to design a tool that would help communities make decisions? One of the things we do at Society is we write a lot of software to help people make decisions. This tool I was going to demonstrate to you, but there's a mismatch between, well, this computer doesn't like my software. But I will afterwards, upstairs, if you want to look at this, you can. But it's a dynamic tool where you can actually say, and talking to, this is in Iowa, you could say, let's reduce social equity. Because we don't really care about social equity. Let's promote economic development, because economic development is what America's all about. We all know that. No hissing, please. Let's enhance environmental resilience. Let's push back on that. So when you change all these, all the possible projects that could be done regionally reorder themselves automatically. They bounce up and down on here, if I was showing this in real time. Each of them shows how much it is focused on a particular one of these things. Over here, here are our goals for electrical use, fossil fuels, greenhouse gases, heat, energy. Here are social capital metrics, longevity and health. Somerville, they're measuring happiness. If any of you read the New York Times the other day, we're very happy in Somerville. But we want to see if it stays that way and gets better. So lots of other metrics here. And when we drag these projects onto different areas in the district, we fill up these little circles over here, or less. Here, landfill space has not got anything in it, but if I had dragged from one of these projects over here, this is a recycling initiative, onto the map, then you would find that would fill up. So this is a way of showing people in real time, dynamically, how things interact. Here's another picture of the same thing, because behind we show data on income or on education levels or age or whatever. And here, so we can interact with this with different data sets and really look at what the impact of different kinds of investment are.